Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, which is Explore Yourself, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. Memoir of my banking journey by Mr. P.H. Ramakrishnan, retired General Manager of Bank of India. Episode number 19. Today's new chapter is time management. The link of earlier episodes is available in description. Preamble. Let me put a disclaimer first. I am not an authority on time management, but I was always keen on two things. One, to keep my table clean. Second, to be punctual. My colleagues told me that they appreciated my time management. I did not follow any textbook. I learned from my experiences. I also had role models in the bank. What I am going to share with you is again not a theoretical lecture, but when and where I learned all these qualities, I feel time management is definitely linked to keeping a clean table and punctuality. The first lesson. The first lesson I learned in punctuality was from an Englishman. It was in 1968. I was just 2 years old in the bank. I was asked to do a pre-sanction inspection of Mettur Barcel Limited. They had a textile mill at Mettur near Salem in Tamil Nadu. One early morning, I got down from the train at Salem Junction. A car was waiting for me at the station. After about an hour's journey, I reached Mettur. I was taken to the guest house. I was ready by 9 a.m. The works manager, an Englishman, called on me. He took me to the first plant. He introduced me to the plant in charge and then said that he would be going back to his office. He asked me when I would need the car to go to the second plant. I told him vaguely, maybe after about an hour or so. Then he asked me to tell him a specific time. He assured me that the car would be there on dot at the time mentioned by me. I was a little annoyed. So I told him that I would need the car at 10:44. Please remember, I was quite young, just 27. He smiled and said it would be there at 10:44. I finished my tour of the plant by 10:40 and came to the entrance. Believe it or not, at 10:43 the car was entering the gate. We reached the second plant. Now the driver asked me at what time he should pick me up to go to the third plant. I told him 12:13. Here again I finished my inspection by 12:05 and waited at the entrance. At 12:12 the car entered the gate. The same story was repeated at the third plant also. I felt a thrill each time the car came at the exact time. Before leaving for Salem to catch the train back to Chennai, then known as Madras, I met the works manager. I told him that I have found out that there was a pleasure in maintaining the punctuality and thanked him for making me realize that. Keep up the promise on time. During the 70s, I was heading small scale industries department at Chennai Zonal Office. Initially, we were also preparing the proposals for Chennai branch in addition to processing the proposals for the zone. But the documentation was looked after by the advances department, loans and guaranteed department of Chennai branch. Mr. M. K. Sroff was heading the loans and guarantee department. Mr. Sroff was earlier in the board secretariat at Bombay and then went to London. After his London training, he was posted to Chennai. He was highly qualified, very sophisticated, and a pleasant person. A shrewd Gujarati with a business frame of mind. We had prepared a proposal for one SSI unit. They needed a guarantee urgently. I sent the sanction proposal to Mr. Sroff and called him over intercom and told him that the customer needed the guarantee very urgently. Mr. Sroff asked me only one question. At what time do you need the guarantee? Even though the guarantee was needed the next day morning, I told him it was needed at 4 p.m. the same day. My calculation was that if I say 4 p.m., at least it would come next day around 11 a.m. But to my surprise, exactly at 4 p.m., Mr. Sroff, who was far senior to me, came to my floor. I was in the second floor and he was in the first floor, walked to my seat and personally handed over the guarantee. That was a new experience to me. Unforgettable IAS officer. In 1978, I was the manager of Cathedral Road branch. One day, Mr. S. Krishnan, Comrade Krishnan, who later worked in Delhi, the manager of Egmore branch, called me on phone. He said he had fixed an appointment with Mr. A. M. Swaminathan, IAS, who was heading a state government undertaking at 10 a.m. the next day. He requested me to come with him. I agreed readily. In my earlier assignment as head of community banking department at zonal office, I used to meet a number of IAS officers who used to be very punctual in keeping up the appointments. Rarely had I to wait for a long time, so I told Krishnan that I would be at my branch by 9:30 a.m. and he should pick me up. He agreed, but he did not turn up even at 10 a.m. I was a bit tense. I phoned him. He said he was just then leaving for my branch. He came at 10:30. I asked him how could he go so late. He said Mr. Swaminathan was a very nice person and he would not mind even if we are late. Even though I was uncomfortable, I went with him. We reached Mr. Swaminathan's office by 11 a.m. Krishnan sent his card inside. Mr. Swaminathan called us inside and took our seat. With a smile, he told us that he had earmarked 1 hour for us from 10 a.m. Now that it was past 11, he had other appointments and told us to come on some other day. He disposed us in 2 minutes. We came back. Mission failed due to our going late. This made a lasting impression on me. In 2012, I attended a lecture at Chennai for a selected audience. By sheer chance, Mr. A. M. Swaminathan, then a retired IAS officer, was sitting by my side. I took the opportunity to narrate the entire episode to him. He did not remember the incidents, but was surprised I could remember the same. Punctual even in death. The purpose of narrating the above incidents is to show how I was influenced by them and decided to be punctual in my life. But the person who impressed me a lot with his punctuality was Zeta Daryani, about whom I had mentioned in my Nigerian experiences and in Dilli Chalo. Zeta was always punctual, whether it was Lagos or Delhi or Mumbai. He had met me in all these places. I asked him how he was able to maintain his timings. He said he would plan for all traffic delays and would try to reach the place about half an hour before the scheduled time. Then he would wait and send his visiting card exactly 5 minutes before the scheduled time. He also told me an interesting incident. Once he had fixed an appointment with Secretary Industries Department of Government of India at 10 a.m. He reached the PA's room at 9:55 and sent his card, but he was called at 11 a.m. When he was ushered in, the secretary was writing something on a file and without even looking up asked him, "What can I do for you?" Mr. Daryani told him, "You can apologize to me." The secretary had a shock of his life and looked up, perplexed. Mr. Daryani explained to him, "You gave me the time at 10, made me wait for an hour. If an NRI businessman is treated like this, how do you expect him to get the confidence to invest money in his homeland?" The secretary apologized and later on became very friendly. Mr. Daryani also kept up his appointment with death. He made a courtesy call on me when I was general manager. He told me that his days were numbered. He was getting a treatment in a foreign country which gave him only a temporary reprieve. He told me that he would not live beyond 6 months. He was still smiling and took leave of me for the last time. Exactly 6 months after that, I received the sad news of his demise. I had never seen a person so punctual throughout his life. Lessons I learned. Being punctual gives me pleasure. Keeping up a promise at the appointed hour gives you more pleasure. When you have to go and meet someone, provide for all contingencies like traffic congestions, tire puncture, etc., while calculating the time. Tailpiece. To realize the value of 1 year, ask a student who failed a grade. To realize the value of 1 month, ask a mother who has given birth to a premature baby. To realize the value of 1 week, ask the editor of a weekly newspaper. To realize the value of 1 hour, ask the lovers who are waiting to meet. To realize the value of 1 minute, ask the person who just missed the train. To realize the value of 1 second, ask someone who just avoided an accident. To realize the value of 1 millisecond, ask the person who won a silver medal at the Olympics. read somewhere. Meetings at Journal Office, Delhi. I used to commence all the meetings on time. When I landed at head office as general manager in 1986, I had a problem. On the second day itself, I found that I was a member of a committee of general managers. One of my seniors was to chair the meeting. The notice for the meeting said it was to commence at 3 p.m. Sharp at 3 p.m., I entered the boardroom, which was the venue for the meeting. There was no one in the room. Even the lights were off. I checked the file again. I was at the right room. I switched on the lights and sat down. Around 10 minutes past 3, an officer entered the room. He was the coordinator. He had a shock seeing me sitting there all alone. He apologized and told me that he would call me when everyone was ready and suggested that I should wait in my room. I went back. Around 3:30, the officer came and informed me that they were all ready. I attended the meeting. The next day also, same thing happened. I thought this was too much. So on third day, I went at 3 p.m. sharp and took my seat. As usual, the coordinator officer came around 3:10 and informed me that it may take another 15 minutes for the meeting to commence. He also suggested that I should go back to my room and he would come and call me. I told him, your memo says the meeting is at 3 p.m. So I have come. I will not move from this seat and wait here only. He became a little panicky and ran here and there to get the other members to the room. That day the meeting commenced at 3:25 instead of 3:30. Once the word spread that I would be waiting at the appointed time, others started coming a little early. Then I became the chairman of the few committees. I would go to the right time. I would wait for 5 minutes for others to come. I would commence the meeting with whoever was available. I would not wait even for other general managers to come. I said they could join at their convenience. If the quorum was there, meeting would start. This message spread, and soon I had almost full attendance for my meetings, and they were never delayed by more than 5 minutes. Mrs. Hemlata Mohan, a brilliant officer who later took VRS and joined ING Bhasa Bank. She is now a consultant mainly on risk management. Who was a DGM at Asset Recovery meeting told me once that whenever there was a meeting, her officers used to ask her whether it was VHR time or Bank of India time. My thanks to all the officers who took extra effort to be on time. Clean table. Vanishing trick. My first view of a clean table was very funny. Circa 1969. I was heading the small scale industries and agricultural finance departments in Chennai. Mr. S.K. Chakraborty was heading the priority sector department at head office. He was on a visit to Chennai and wanted to call on one Mr. Kamath, who was heading the small scale industries department at the State Bank of India. I fixed up an appointment and I reached Mr. Kamath's office. His table was full of files. He requested us to give him a couple of minutes. He called the Sipai and asked him to remove all the files and put them in a nearby Godrej steel cupboard. The Sipai quickly dumped everything in that cupboard, and now Mr. Kamath's table was very clean, with no papers. I thought, what a funny way to have a clean table. Big basket files. In 1969, we were negotiating to give a loan of rupees 3 crores to Tamil Nadu Electricity Board for energizing the pump sets. In those days, it was considered as a big loan. I used to meet Mr. Prem Kumar IS, who was member accounts. His table used to be always very clean, not a single sheet of paper. I was curious. I asked him once how he managed to have a clean table. He smiled and showed me a big bamboo box on his right side, which measured about 4 feet in height and 2 feet in breadth. He said all the incoming files would be placed in the basket straight away and would be taken home. He would spend the evening with the family and have his dinner around 8:30 p.m. Thereafter, he would start clearing the files, which would go on till about 1 a.m. He said that with a stream of visitors, which included many MLAs, he would never attempt to clear any files in the office. My motivator. The motivation to maintain a clean table came to me in 1970 or so when Mr. D.N. Sukla took charge as regional manager of South Zone, equivalent of zonal manager. His predecessor, Mr. B.G. Karnik, was a painstaking officer whose table used to be full of papers. Mr. Sukla had written to India after spending about 10 years in East Africa, where we had a strong presence. More about Mr. Shukla later. Suffice it to say now that he was one of my mentors and role model. On the second day after he took charge, I went to his cabin around 2:30 p.m. He used to go home for lunch around 1 p.m. and would be back by 2 p.m. I saw him reading Economic Times with a cup of tea before him. The table was absolutely clean with no files or papers. Those days, Economic Times used to be delivered around 2 p.m. As there was no Chennai edition. It would come by morning flight from Mumbai. He had a relaxed look. He smiled at me and asked me to take my seat. He gave me clear directions on the matters which I referred to him. Any file sent to him would come back fast like a ball thrown on the wall. Whenever he walked into his room, he would find him relaxed with no papers on his table. Within a week, I decided that I would also try to emulate him. The secret behind his success of maintaining a clean table were two. One, Mr. Shukla had an elephantine memory. Once he had gone through a file, there was no need for him to read the back papers again to refresh his memory. Two, he had a capacity to take a quick and correct decisions. He would never waver in his decision. Though I was nowhere near him in possessing those qualities, I thought my goal could, could be to have a clean table like him. So I started keenly observing his way of taking decisions and disposing the files. I can say that at least I succeeded in maintaining a clean table over a period of time. Compliments from customers. I was in Kenya between 1979 and 1984. I was in charge of the credit department. One day, one of our very valued customers, Mr. Inder Singh Gill, called on me. He was more than 80 years old. He was a well-respected Sardarji in the Indian community. In fact, he was the first station master at Nairobi railway station when the train services commenced between Nairobi and Mombasa. Many Indians had migrated to Kenya to lay the railway line in the colonial era. Mr. Gill later on started his own timber business and was a very successful businessman. He sat before me and told me, Mr. Ramakrishnan, you are the busiest person in this office. I was puzzled by his statement. I asked him, why do you say that, sir? He smiled and said, I always find your table clean. The busiest person is the one who has no papers on his table, not the one whose table is full of papers. I always remember his compliments. Generally, people always think that a person with a clean table has no work. He looked at it differently. Another angle was sold by one Mr. Kassav, a well-known customer of Northern Zone. He told me once, Mr. Ramakrishnan, whenever we come to you, we find you with a clean table. This makes us relaxed and we get the feeling that you are able to pay full attention to us. Your mind and eyes are not distracted by the papers on the table. Even if you say no to our request, we feel you have well thought over it and are saying no. I never realized that our clean table makes the customers also comfortable. I know it is difficult for a branch manager to keep his table clean, but as you go up the ladder and to administrative positions, you can make an attempt to keep your table clean. I will again refer to this subject later in this article. Lesson I learned. The busiest person in the office is the one with a clean table. Your mind is also free when you have a clean table. The customer also feels relaxed when your table is clean. One should develop quick decision making capacity to have a clean table. LPs. A well respected NRI businessman, Mr. X, was dealing with a group of banks in India for his Indian operations. He wanted to meet one of the bank chairmen, not Bank of India. In spite of his many attempts, he could not get an appointment. Finally, he approached a contact in the Prime Minister's office to get the appointment. Needless to say, the appointment was given immediately. He came down from abroad and met the chairman with his Indian executives. He was ushered into the chairman's cabin. The first question the chairman asked was why he had gone to the PMO's office. Then, when the businessman started talking to chairman, was looking into some papers on his table, not connected with Mr. X, and called his general manager on intercom and spoke to him for 5 minutes. Then he requested Mr. X to continue, but the sub staff brought a set of files to the chairman and he started looking at them and told Mr. X that he was listening. In fact, he was hearing and not listening. Again, the chairman attended some incoming calls Mr. X was totally disappointed and took leave of the chairman after 30 minutes. The meeting was total waste of time. This is a real story told to me by the Indian executive. The three P's. Sorry for imitating the management book writers. From my experience, I learned that time management is management of three P's. They are people, papers, and phone calls. People. How to manage the stream of visitors who came to meet you. Managing people depend upon the position you occupy. If you are a small branch manager, then managing the time with customers are not in your hands. We have a habit in the branch of directing everyone with a problem to the manager. A manager should be available to the customers during banking hours. Many visit the branches in the hope of meeting the manager. They feel disappointed if the manager is not present as the other officers may not be able to solve their problem. Even now, when I go to my branch, if the manager is not in his cabin, I make inquiries. I get one of the three answers. Please note there are only three officers in the branch, including the manager. 1. The manager has gone for inspection. 2. The general manager has called for a meeting. 3. The manager is on leave. I find it difficult to accept the first two reasons. The manager has no business to go for inspection during the banking hours. Similarly, the general manager should not call for meetings during banking hours. If my memory is right, I never called for managers meet in the mornings. They would be only in the afternoons. I might have called only the chief managers or AGMs in the mornings. That too only if it was very urgent. Mr. Pattu Srinivasan was manager of Thousand Lights branch, 70s. Once I told him that a small school industry wanted to meet him in the afternoon. He said he had made it a practice not to meet any customer after banking hours. Our banking hours those days were from 10 to 2. He said otherwise he would not get any time for housekeeping and for working on credit proposals. This is one model for branch managers. Incidentally, Mr. Pattu Srinivasan later quit the bank and got a UN job. He is now conducting programs for senior citizens at Chennai under a trust set up by him. When you reach higher positions, it would be possible to meet the customers by giving appointments. But having given an appointment, you should not make them wait further. In Kenya, for security reasons, no one would be allowed after banking hours. I never gave any particular time for the customers. It was like an open house. After moving to Nigeria, I started the system of giving appointments like my predecessors. Normally, most of the Sindhi customers would get up very late in the morning and would like to come after midday. Of course, there were some exceptions. It suited me because I would finish all my paperwork as well as meeting the departmental heads before 10 a.m. You may recall that our working hours started at 7:30 in the morning. The danger in time management is we become obsessed with it. Once when a Sindhi customer was with me, my secretary came in and told me that the Deputy High Commissioner was waiting outside my cabin. He had just come without any appointment. The customer voluntarily offered to go out and wait, but I told him the Deputy High Commissioner has come without an appointment. Let him wait until I finish with you. It took another 15 minutes for me to call the Deputy High Commissioner to my cabin. I apologized to him for making him wait. He took it nicely and did not make any fools. Later on, I realized that I had committed a blunder. All said and done, the Deputy High Commissioner was a very high official, and I should not have made him wait even for a minute. In Nigeria, he was the government of India. People consist of not only customers but also staff members. When you occupy executive positions, you should give enough time to your departmental heads. When I had the first only assignment as general manager, I had no problem, as I would always reach the office about 15 minutes before others and would be ready to meet the departmental heads at 10 sharp. They would come throughout the day whenever I was free. There were only a couple of outlying deployments, but in Mumbai it was a different case. Our head office was in Express Towers, not even point. All the general managers were on the 14th floor. Departments were on the 7th or 8th floor, and there were also many outlying departments. So I devised one system. Every evening, my secretary used to type a sheet indicating the appointments for the next day, including internal meetings. I instructed her to send copies of the sheets to all the department heads so that they would be aware of when I would be free. I also told the departmental heads that if they had any issues to be discussed with my visitors, they were free to join without waiting for a formal call from me. This system worked out very well. My deputies did not waste time waiting outside my cabin. In addition to departmental heads, both Delhi and Mumbai had another peculiar feature. Many staff members from various zones used to visit these places and official work, training, etc. Many who knew me used to call on me. Obviously, they would not fix an appointment. I used to meet them all. I would spend 5 to 15 minutes of quality time with them. When I talked to them, would not be disturbed by phone calls or files. The problem normally faced by the juniors was they would not know when to take leave. So I used to conclude the meetings by saying, okay, we'll see you next time. Needless to say, coffee or tea would be served within minutes of their entering the room. I had noticed that many executives would offer coffee after 10 minutes and then one had to wait for another 15 minutes for the coffee boy to come. I avoided this issue by giving suitable standing instructions to my secretary. Since I am on the topic of visitors, let me also mention some etiquettes to be maintained. Always try to go to the door to receive visitors and senior officers. See them off at the door or near the lift. I have seen Mr. S. A. Bhatt, who became the CMD of IOB, Indian Overseas Bank, following this meticulously. Mr. Sinoy, when he was the CMD of Bank of Baroda, used to see me off by walking with me up to the lift, and thereafter the secretary would come up to the car. In the same way, when Mr. G. Narayanan was the ED of Indian Overseas Bank, his secretary would wait for me at the entrance of the building and also would see me off. These are nice gestures which should be followed by all the top executives. I had found during my head office days that amongst all the chairmen with whom I had worked, Mr. Katoria was the best in time management. For the sake of future top executives, I am giving below how he worked. Mr. Katoria would be in his seat by 9:30. Immediately all the folders received from various departments after 4 p.m. on the previous day would be placed on his table. Sharp at 9:45, all the general managers would assemble in his room for the morning coffee meeting. Mr. Katoria would be having a small pocket book in which he would have noted down the points to be discussed. Whenever he visited a zone, he would have noted the things mentioned by the general manager in his pocket book. He would mention one by one, and the meeting would be over by about 10:15. He would give appointments to visitors only up from 2 p.m. Until then, he would keep himself free for all the executives to come, meet, and discuss with him. It was like an open house. At 11 a.m., his secretary would send the bunch of folders received since morning. Individual folders would not be sent to him unless the matter was very urgent. At intervals of every hour, a bunch of files received by his secretariat during the past 1 hour would go to him. He would keep on cleaning the files in between the meetings with the executives. Around 1:30, he would move to the executive lunchroom. From 2 p.m. onwards, the visitors would start coming in. He would keep on clearing the files between the page gaps. The last appointment would be given by about 4:30 p.m. The last bunch of files would be sent inside at 4 p.m. All the files folders received thereafter would be sent to the CMD only the next day. He would say stay in the office until he had cleared the last file. Normally he would leave by about 6 p.m. No files would be taken home. If any executive goes to meet him after 2 p.m., he would say, I have given you 4 hours in the morning. Why do you want to come in between when I am seeing the customers? So the matter has to be real urgent for us to go to him in the afternoon. I have more interesting stories about him, which I would mention, then I write about my days in head office. A word of caution. Never refuse to see people from up country just because they did not fix up an appointment. Lessons I learned. 1. Giving appointments will be possible only when you are a senior executive. 2. Seeing people with appointments should not become an obsession. 3. Do not make your deputies waste their time in waiting outside your cabin. Tell peace. My wife never used to phone me at the office unless it was absolutely essential. When I was head office, she called me one afternoon and spoke to me for a couple of minutes. I kept the phone down. Immediately there was another ring, and my secretary informed me that my wife was again on the line. I got annoyed and asked her in Tamil, Ippa meaning now what? In an irritated tone. When the lady at the other end spoke, I had the shock of my life. It was Mrs. Samola Gopinath. Chief General Manager of DBOD RBI. She also knew Tamil. I apologized to her profusely, and being a very good person, she took it sportingly. Mrs. Gopinath retired as Deputy Governor of RBI. The problem was my secretary did not identify my wife's voice as she was a rare caller. Papers. Dealing with papers consumes maximum time. Here again the workload varies with the position you are holding. As a branch manager, you function as if you are in the factory assembly line. There will be continuous flow of various instruments during the banking hours. In our days, clearing time was the most testing time. Nowadays, with the centralizations of clearing, these things have become much better. Those days, we had to spend a lot of time in balancing books, causing us to sit late. Nowadays, with core banking, I think there is no concept of balancing the books, and the manager and officers are relieved from the routine work of closing the books for the day and posting the general ledger balances book. The officers get time to do more productive work. I remember in Kenya, we spent almost 29 hours to locate a difference of just two shillings in savings ledger. This was despite electronic ledger posting mechanic machines. I also recollect when I was handling agriculture finance of Chennai branch in 1968, we had difficulty in balancing the ledgers. There were 8 or 9 ledgers of farmers. Let Casey Chakropani and I spent 2 full nights in the office to balance the books. We would take just 3 hours break in the morning to go home and come back. However, the present day managers point out to the extended working hours which makes them do more routine work. I also recollect when I was handling agriculture finance. Clearing the papers does not mean transferring them from in-tray to out-tray. We had one officer in Chennai during the 70s who was in charge of bills department. Anything kept in the in-tray, they will go to the out-tray in seconds and his table would have no papers. He would be sitting in his seat with folded hands, waiting for the service staff to bring the next set of vouchers. But he would not take the initiative to follow up on his own about overdue bills and the collection. When you occupy a senior executive's position, you would receive three types of papers. One inward mail to internal circulars with folders from various departments containing memorandums, proposals, letters, etc. to be signed by you. Dealing with inward mail is elementary. I would not go into that. You should mark the routine circulars to the departments, but should take time to read the important circulars. As reading the long circulars would hamper your speed in disposing the folders. I used to follow one system. I would keep all the circulars to be read on a side table. After finishing the folders, I would take them one by one and read them. Otherwise, while reading the circulars, your table would get piled up with more and more folders and you would feel restless. Whatever I could not read during office hours, I would take them home. That brings me to the subject of taking papers home. I had found many officers working very late in the office and then carrying remaining files home. I used to advise them that if they were going to carry files home, then they should leave the office by at 5:30 p.m. and take all the pending files home. Alternatively, if they felt like sitting late, then they should sit till they finish the files but should not carry any files home. By sitting late and then carrying the files home, you would be ruining your family life. It had happened in one case, and the officers took VRS to buy harmony and peace at home. When I retired from service, a farewell party was given to HOA committee. Mr. T.R. Madhavan, ex-GM, who had worked very closely with me for many years, made one observation. He said, there was one Mr. T.N.K. Iyer in the small scale industries department at head office in the 70s. He wrote a book on financing small scale industries. In that book, he had mentioned that one should try to take a decision based on the least information. Mr. Ramakrishnan followed this rule. I never realized I was doing this without even reading the book. I always hated sending the papers back and forth. As a ZM and GM, if the core issue was covered in the proposal or a memorandum, I used to clear it. If I had any doubt, I would phone the officer or call him and finish the matter. Rarely would I return a proposal of paper with queries. Many have the habit of writing, please see me or please speak. This delays things. The papers go to the department and the officers comes back, sometimes after a day or two. You may have to read it again to refresh memory. Such remarks are written for the following reasons. The executive had some reservations about the proposal and would like to discuss with the departmental head. The executive is unable to understand the proposal. He would like to be educated on the subject. He has no time to deal with the papers on that day. He would like to keep a clean table and therefore would push off the papers with these remarks. One of the chairmen who used to carry a lot of papers home once told me that if he could not clear all the files, then he would return the remaining files with the remark, please see me. The executive has a wavering mind and unable to decide. He wants an assurance that everything is all right from the developmental head. क्या सब ठीक है? This is quite dangerous. No developmental head would say things are not all right. There was one journal manager. If he was unable to take a decision, he would write on the file, refer to me after 15 days. He used to dispose of many papers like that. His idea was that problem would get resolved within 15 days on its own. A word of caution. 1. Never sign any important papers on the day of your travel, especially if you are going abroad. Some of the departmental heads would try to get your signature on complicated matters before you leave. Since traveling abroad makes everyone, including the chairman and the undersigned, to be in a happy frame of mind, they would normally ask that usual questions: Is everything is okay? Have you examined all my aspects? Then he would sign blindly. The chairman of a PSU signed some contract on the day of his departure abroad, trusting his colleagues, and had to face the CBI later on. He ultimately lost his job. To never decline a proposal, later reverse your decision. Even if your reversal of the earlier decision might have been justified, an outside agency like CBI might not be able to appreciate your change of mind. Sometimes it is better to admit your limitations. When Mr. PM Kopikar took charge as regional manager of Southern Zone, he called a meeting of all the developmental heads. The meeting lasted only 2 minutes. He told us, I am responsible only for the English portion of your letters. Rest you are responsible. He was very intelligent and had a lot of common sense. His strong point was his command over English. He had spent many years abroad. By making such a statement, he made us all very cautious. We would make sure that whatever papers we sent him for his signature were perfect. He had a trouble-free tenure. As I had mentioned earlier, learning to make quick decisions is the only way for better time management. I used to wonder many times as to why executives sit late. There are quite a few reasons. One, when I returned from Nigeria, I was posted to Bank of India Finance Limited as joint chief executive. Mr. B.T. Saptarisi was the chief executive, an intelligent person. He had a habit of sitting late. Our office was on the 24th floor of the Bombay Stock Exchange. In fact, both of us were AGMs, but he was a little senior to me. He would call me and behave as in the evening around 6 p.m. every day and would order vada pav or aloo bhanda and coffee and would start discussing about this and that. Many times it would be just some gossip or about personalities. He would buy smoking cigarettes one after another, and we used to sit as passive smokers. I learned about the reason for his late sitting from Vyas. It appeared Mr. Saptarisi never used to smoke at home, so he stayed in the office as long as possible to enjoy smoking. 2. Whenever an executive sits late, some officers should also sit late to the boss that they were working very hard. This used to result in a coterie being formed. This coterie would sit together every day and decide the fate of many people by passing comments about others, recommending transfers, etc. 3. Some sit late because their brain would be active only in the evenings. Their disposal of papers would be good in the evenings. Mr. K. S. Swaminathan was manager of Kannur branch in 1968. I was sent from Zonal office on a special assignment. I stayed in Kannur for a month. More about it later, when I write about my early days. One evening, Mr. Swaminathan called me and took me in his car. He did not say where we are going. The car stopped before a cinema hall. He took me for an English movie. The movie was over by 8:45 p.m. Then he drove back to the bank and started working seriously. Out of courtesy, I sat with him till about 9:30 and then excused myself saying that I did not get dinner about after 10 at the hotel where I was staying. When he was working as head of advances department at Chennai in the 70s, I had seen him working with full enthusiasm in the evenings. Telpis. Mr. B.G. Karnik was the regional manager in 1968. He was very meticulous and was a man for details. Many of the papers sent to him would come back with the remark, "Please see me." We, the departmental heads, would always carry a bunch of papers with such remarks to get them cleared by him. By 1968, and our newly constructed building at Errabalu, Chetty Street was completed and was ready for occupation. Mr. Karnik called a meeting of all the heads of departments and explained to us the features of the new building. He said there would be intercom facility. Immediately, Mr. P. N. Venkataraman, a very senior officer with a sense of humor, quipped, said, "Hereafter you can mark the papers with 'Please hear me' instead of 'Please see me.'" All of us except one person could not control our laughter. That person was phone. This is an instrument which dislocates all your time management. At least in our days, we could control this as there was only landline. People, unless they were your close friends or relatives, would hesitate to disturb you at home. Now, with the arrival of mobile phones, especially smartphones, our whole life pattern seems to have changed. After becoming an executive as early as 1984, I had the luxury of a secretary, hence I could manage my calls easily. Thus, no call would disturb me when I am in a meeting. This enabled me to focus on the meeting and ensured continuity in discussion. But I always ensured that all the calls would be returned before I go home. Even I was in charge of community banking department in the 70s. There was an observation that I was too official while talking to colleagues. Somehow I used to close the conversations once the purpose of telephone call was over. I have to plead guilty. I loosened up a little later on. The most dangerous words which are used after the official talk is over is "और क्या बात," meaning what other news. This would prolong the conversations for a long time with discussion about the promotions, transfers, etc. Once you avoid these three words, you would save a lot of time. Incoming calls were not much of a problem in the 60s and 70s before the introduction of STD. One had to book a call to speak to another city, but with STD and ISD, all calls have become like local calls. With the mobile revolution, you are not able to control the incoming calls. Thank God, till I retired in 2001, mobile culture was not that dominating. In fact, I remember in 1996 or 97, our then chairman wanted a mobile. As usual, our state department told him there was no provisions to buy a mobile for chairman. It was a bit expensive in those days, when you have to pay for both incoming and outgoing calls, that too at a high rate. After he threatened to buy from his own money, they provided him. This was told to me by the chairman himself. In 1999, I found at the meetings I attended that all the GMs in charge of treasury in PSBs had a mobile. So I put up a note for mobile phones for me, and that's DGM said treasury. Those days I used to see it in Nariman Point Express Towers, and treasury was in 7080 MG Road. I became the first general manager to have a mobile phone. Telephone manners. I learned the first lesson in telephone manners as early as 1970 when I was junior officer. I was in charge of agriculture finance department. In order to promote indirect finance to agriculture, head office had directed us to contact EID Perry Limited. Mr. P.A. Sanghani was the sub-manager of Nadraj main branch. He took me to meet one Mr. Ramakrishnan, who was in charge of fertilizer division of EID Perry Limited. We had some good discussions. Mr. Ramakrishnan was a very senior executive of the company. After a few days, Mr. Sanghani called me and told me that he had spoken to Mr. Ramakrishnan and that I should go and meet him immediately. I called on him after the official business was over. Mr. Ramakrishnan told me to please inform your sub manager that when he wants to talk to me, he should be ready on that line. He should not ask his secretary to get me online, and then make me wait for him to come on the line. I could never forget his advice from that day onwards. I would never make it senior or even if customer waits on the line. If the call was at my initiative, if I had to talk to the general manager, I would tell my secretary to connect me to the secretary of the GM in Delhi. In Delhi, on a couple of occasions, I had noticed a junior officer talking to me and then asking me to wait for his chief manager AGM. I had to correct them. With general manager, sometimes I used to call the managers directly from my phone instead of going through my secretary. I observed two things. One, many would just say hello and would not identify themselves or the branch. To invariably response would be a tired voice or why are you disturbing me tone. That tone used to change once I identified myself. As against this, I had also noticed some branch managers, even recently, lifting the phone at the first ring and saying good morning, Bank of India, that branch. It used to give the impression that someone is happy to talk to you. Nowadays, it is very difficult to control the mobile calls. I had noticed a practice amongst some executive directors. They used to leave the mobile phone with their secretaries during working hours. He or she would note from whom the calls were coming, and if it was from RBI and government, would rush to boss with the mobile. In the evening, while going home or whenever they get free time, they used to return the calls. I want to share a few experiences, even though it may not be strictly a time management practice, but examples of telephone manners. I feel it would be useful to the present day executives. As General Manager International, I was on a visit to New York branch in the late 90s. Mrs. Ranjana Kumar was the chief executive. Many Bank of India staff know that she rose to become the chairperson of Indian Bank, NABARD, and retired as the Vigilance Commissioner. More about her later. I had read in the news that one Mr. Victor Meneges, Indian, was the head of banking operations in Citibank, a very top position. I somehow got him confused with Francis Rosario of Citibank, who was in Lagos during my tenure. I knew Francis quite well, so I called Victor's office. His secretary told me that he was in a meeting and that he would call back. Frankly, I did not have any hope, but to my surprise, he called me after an hour. While talking to him, I realized the mix up I had done. He was nice and told me that Francis was in London and asked me to wait for a moment and gave me the contact number of Francis. Please note the courtesy extended by a very busy person. Using the opportunity, I introduced Mrs. Kumar on the phone itself and told him she would call on him. He pleasantly agreed. Later on, Mrs. Kumar, who is excellent in public relations, called on him and established a good rapport with him. Once of the general managers informed me that his son-in-law was applying for an interview with ILFS. He wanted me to speak to the CEO. I knew Mr. Ravi Parthasarathi, the CEO, as we are both on the board of another unit of ILFS. I called up Ravi and requested him to help if possible. I thought the matter ended there, but after a week, Ravi called me and informed me that the candidate would not be selected and gave me the reasons also. I was amazed at this feedback. How many of us do this? One problem we all face is that when we get three phone calls continuously, we totally forget the contents of the first phone call. To overcome this problem, we all scribble something on our pads, but later on forget about it and find it difficult to decode what we have written. In this context, I remember one executive, Mr. N.V. Subramanian, not the NVS, who was chief executive of New York, was area manager of Southern Zone in my 70s. He used to keep a bound notebook with him. He would record each and every phone call with date and time, note down the request in his excellent handwriting. At the end of the day, he would go through the notebook and ensure that action has been taken or initiated on each request. Though this was the perfect system, I could not follow it. I tried, but later switched over to the scribbling pad. A suggestion to retirees. Even if you have the mobile number of a serving executive whom you know very well, please do not call him during the office hours. He may be in a meeting. Just send him an SMS to call you when he is free. This is what I do. If it is urgent, I add ASAP. I get return call always. Conclusion. Ultimately, time management is in your hands. You can try to learn from others and adopt good practices. Then again, it all depends on your willpower. LPs. I know a group chairman who used to have internal meetings every Monday at 10 a.m. with his executives. He used to be very punctual. At one coming late would have to pay a fine of rupees 10. The chairman would demand immediate payment. The collected money would be spent for a charitable purpose. Well, we all know We all now feel that we cannot live without a smartphone. I know two top executives who manage without a mobile phone even today. One is Mr. R. Thagarajan, chairman of Sriram Group. Another is Mr. Aditya Puri, managing director of HDFC Bank. Normally, top executives do not print their mobile number on the visiting card. There was an exception. One PSB chairman had printed his number. When another chairman asked him about, he replied, "Those who want to talk to me somehow find out my number from someone else, so why give them that trouble?" The chapter My Time Management is completed, and next chapter will be Golden Jubilee of Joining and an Unforgettable Day in a Bachelor's Life. Thank you very much for your patience. Request for like, subscribe, and share.